We have this conversation about the justification of the West in its support of Ukraine. But we ignore something that the Russians have been raising even before this proxy war began. Russia will retaliate. Let's just pray that Russia continues to have the maturity to avoid this escalating into a general nuclear war. But if it does, hopefully the last thought through people's minds will be, besides, oh, damn, well, it's our fault, because it is our fault. This is a war that we in the West have thrust upon ourselves. As Vladimir Putin once said, when there's a nuclear war, everybody will die, but the Russians will go to heaven as martyrs. The West will go to hell as those who started this conflict.
Welcome back to our channel. Today, we dive deep into the unfolding situation on the Ukraine-Russia front. Why hasn't Russia opened a new front in Kharkiv or Sumy? Why are convoys of tanks and supplies heading to the border but not appearing on the battlefield? Let's unravel these mysteries together. Our analysis today also touches upon insights from Mr. Scott. First, let's analyze the Northern Front. Despite the constant movement of convoys full of tanks and armored vehicles to the border, Russia has not launched new offensives in Kharkiv or Sumy. Meanwhile, Ukraine has mobilized hundreds of tanks, seen at border crossings from Poland and Germany, likely heading towards Kharkiv. This accumulation suggests a brewing storm at the northern Ukrainian border. Why then has Russia positioned 300,000 troops around the Sumy front line, with smaller contingents near Kharkiv, but remains largely inactive there? Over the past week, Russian forces have escalated attacks across southern regions. In the past 24 hours alone, fighting has intensified dramatically. Any available soldier is given a gun and sent to engage in skirmishes at strategic points. Russia's strategy here seems to be one of anticipation and reaction rather than preemptive action. With heavy equipment like tanks and armored vehicles being held back, it suggests a defensive stance, waiting for Ukraine's moves. The buildup of forces and the sudden spike in aggression in other areas highlight a strategic decision by Russia. They appear to be conserving their resources and maintaining a strong defensive line in the north, possibly to counter a major Ukrainian offensive expected in the near future. Additionally, the heavy movements seen at the border suggest that both sides are preparing for significant engagements. Ukraine's buildup at the Polish and German border crossings indicates a strategic accumulation of forces, likely intended for a substantial counteroffensive. We can see a storm brewing on the northern Ukrainian border, with significant troop movements and logistical preparations on both sides. The question remains, why hasn't Russia opened new fronts in Kharkiv or Sumy, despite having the capacity to do so? This build-up and sudden aggression lead us to ponder the timing and purpose behind these movements. As we approach significant events like the NATO summit and the Peace Summit, Ukraine faces pressure to prove its resilience against Russian aggression. Western support has been robust, with substantial aid packages and even the green light for Ukraine to strike Russian territories, specifically Belgorod. The NATO summit is particularly critical, as it carries more practical implications than the Peace Summit, which is more formal in nature. Despite the heavy influx of vehicles and heavy tanks, the Northern Front remains quiet. This suggests a defensive focus in the north while Ukraine consolidates forces, preparing for a counteroffensive in areas like Liptsy and Vovchansk. Ukraine has concentrated a significant number of troops, but their counterattacks in Liptsy and Kharkiv, although noteworthy, have not yet reached their full intensity. Ukraine's strategic patience here is telling. They are building up their forces, possibly to launch a significant offensive that will have more than just tactical implications. With the NATO summit approaching, Ukraine needs to demonstrate its capability to hold its ground and launch successful offensives. Ukraine might soon launch a significant counteroffensive, not just to reclaim Liptsy and Vovchansk, but potentially to strike deeper into Russian territory. Recapturing these areas, although beneficial for peace talks, may not fully convince the West of Ukraine's military prowess. Western allies need to see Ukraine's capability to sustain prolonged resistance and mount significant offensives. One plausible scenario is Ukraine opening a new front, utilizing their amassed forces to push back Russian lines and create a buffer zone. This would not only secure more territory but also demonstrate their operational capacity to their NATO allies, ensuring continued support. Moreover, the significance of the NATO summit cannot be overstated. Ukraine must show tangible progress on the battlefield to secure further military aid and political backing from its Western allies. The success or failure of Ukraine's upcoming offensives will directly influence the decisions made at the NATO summit. This strategic patience sets the stage for Ukraine's potential major offensive. Let's delve deeper into Ukraine's counteroffensive strategy. Imagine Ukraine reclaiming these areas and pushing towards Belgorod. Although capturing Belgorod is unlikely, creating a siege scenario could dramatically alter the strategic landscape. A siege here would not only disrupt Russian logistics but also serve as a psychological blow, showing Ukraine's ability to strike deep into Russian territory. Drawing from a blogger's analysis, Ukraine's tactical focus on Belgorod aligns with their broader strategy of weakening Russian resolve and maintaining Western support. This move could involve a dual approach, one along major highways and another through less populated areas, increasing the chances of encircling and disrupting Russian forces. Belgorod holds strategic and symbolic importance. As Mr. Scott mentioned, the significance of Belgorod cannot be underestimated. It serves as a critical logistics hub and a psychological target that could shift the conflict's momentum. A siege in Belgorod would disrupt Russian supply lines and demonstrate Ukraine's offensive capabilities to the world. Ukraine's potential offensive into Belgorod is more than just a tactical maneuver. It's a bold statement to the international community. By threatening Belgorod, Ukraine forces Russia to divert resources and attention, thereby relieving pressure on other fronts. This multi-pronged approach maximizes Ukraine's strategic advantages. A successful operation in Belgorod would not only boost Ukraine's military credibility but also enhance its political standing, both domestically and internationally. It would show that Ukraine can take the fight into Russian territory, significantly altering the strategic calculus. But why this specific focus on Belgorod? Belgorod is a critical target, given its proximity and symbolic value. A siege here would not only serve military objectives but also boost morale and political standing, both domestically and internationally. Scott Ritter used to say about the symbolic and strategic significance of Belgorod cannot be underestimated. Ukraine's potential offensive into Belgorod is more than just a tactical maneuver. It's a bold statement to the international community. By threatening Belgorod, Ukraine forces Russia to divert resources and attention, thereby relieving pressure on other fronts. This multi-pronged approach maximizes Ukraine's strategic advantages. Belgorod is a critical target, given its proximity and symbolic value. A siege here would not only serve military objectives but also boost morale and political standing, both domestically and internationally. Drawing from a blogger's analysis, Ukraine's tactical focus on Belgorod aligns with their broader strategy of weakening Russian resolve and maintaining Western support. By creating a siege in Belgorod, Ukraine aims to disrupt Russian supply lines and demonstrate their offensive capabilities. This move could force Russia to divert resources and attention, thereby relieving pressure on other fronts and maximizing Ukraine's strategic advantages. But what about Russia's defensive stance? Russia's current strategy involves fortifying positions around Sumy with a massive force of 300,000 troops. Kharkiv sees a smaller yet significant presence, ready to counter any Ukrainian advance. With a defensive posture, Russia minimizes losses, leveraging their superior artillery and air power to repel Ukrainian offensives effectively. However, this cautious approach hints at a broader strategy, waiting for Ukraine to make the first move. Russia has not committed heavy tanks and armored units in the north, focusing instead on defending strategic points. The use of heavy tanks typically signifies offensive operations, yet they are conspicuously absent from the northern battlefields, reinforcing the notion that Russia is waiting for a Ukrainian offensive. Russia's defensive tactics suggest an anticipation of Ukraine's moves. They aim to absorb initial Ukrainian advances and counterattack when Ukrainian forces are stretched thin. This strategy reduces Russian casualties and maintains their strong defensive lines. Russia's strategy is to maintain a strong defensive posture, minimizing casualties while leveraging their superior artillery and air power. This approach is designed to absorb Ukrainian advances and counterattack effectively. Russia's caution indicates they are waiting for Ukraine to make the first move, which could lead to a decisive engagement. So, what might the future hold for this volatile region? In the coming weeks, we might witness Ukraine launching a major offensive, possibly reclaiming border regions and creating strategic sieges. This would not only serve military objectives but also boost morale and political standing, both domestically and internationally. As Ukraine prepares to showcase its resilience, Russia's defensive strategy will be crucial in shaping the conflict's next phase. The stakes are high, and the world watches closely. Both sides are gearing up for significant moves. Ukraine's potential to reclaim territories and create sieges will test their strategic planning and execution. Russia's response will determine the conflict's trajectory in the coming months. Stay tuned as we continue to cover these developments. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay updated on every twist and turn in this critical conflict. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.